session, we have Shri Kumar Vikram to moderate.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the most significant sessions that is happening here at India Pavilion. You know, this Guest of Honor Country project, we have been working on it for more than, almost for 3 years, I would say. And Mr. Vincent Montagno, who is the president of SNE, he was gracious enough to come to the office of National Book Trust India in 2019 January to sign the MOU between India and France for this particular event. And of course, the COVID came into the play, but I think that also helped us strengthen our relationship over a period of time. We had more avenues to discuss and plan, and it was a challenge, and we are indeed very thankful to you for all the support that you and your team has been providing. The basic context of this is, of course, that, you know, these events, they are organized with a lot of effort and with a lot of energy and with a lot of passion. But once the events get over, and we do not generally, you know, the kind of a platform and the forum that it should be able to provide is something that we should be looking at and something that we should provide. The session is being chaired by Chairman, National Book Trust India. Shri Yuvraj Malik, the Director of NBT, is one of the panelists. We have Mr. E.N. Nand Kumar, who is a publisher, an eminent publisher from Kerala. And he's also a distinguished member of the Board of Trustees of National Book Trust India. And he would be sharing his own experiences of promoting publishing ties. And we are indeed very thankful to Mr. Ramesh Chandra Vora. We have added him in the session because he has a unique background. He's an Indian writer who has been based in France for more than 5 decades. And we would be having his inputs on this session. I think we'll start with Mr. E.N. Nand Kumar, and we would request him to give his inputs on this session.
My friends, this is a very good subject actually, beyond the guest of country. As a guest of country, actually, we can celebrate that. In the practical side, that is entirely different. The practical side actually want how can we implement some plans in the practical sense. I myself, I am presenting in my viewpoint in the subject. Actually, I had taken that this is 6 points. One is the institutionalization of knowledge transfer between 2 countries. France have a Tagore publication assistance program for translating French works into Indian languages. Similarly, India may offer a scheme under the financial assistance that any institutions can do from Indian side. Second one is the annual conference of Indian and French publishers at the New Delhi World Book Fair and in Paris also. In the WBF, this can be organized as part of the New Delhi copyright table. My third opinion is that establish a Kalidasa Center in Paris to promote cultural, publishing, and art activities. Fourth one is a regular Indian pavilion at the Paris and French pavilion at the Delhi World Book Fair. As an exchange program, we can conduct that. Fifth program is the Indo-French Writers Exchange Program. India may host young writers, French writers, in different Indian language areas. France may host young Indian writers in France. Alliance Franchise India and Indian missions in France can collaborate in this. And my last point is that create a pool of translators from Indian language to French and French to Indian languages. Establishment of Indian language departments in French universities and French departments in more Indian universities. For an example, in so many US universities, they are studying some Indian language also there. Likewise, the French universities can also study some Indian languages. Likewise, as it is in India, so many colleges and so many universities, they are studying French also at there. In its wider manner, I can mention that we Indians are really proud of our country has been selected as the guest of honor country in this festival. We are really happy to make this occasion to assure that. And France and other countries have a lot of arenas for cooperation in the realm of publishing, translations, literary exchange, copyright arrangements. We have remarkable titles for translation into foreign languages, especially in India. Similarly, our readers are all smiles to read translation of books in French and other languages into our languages. For example, even now, for the last 2-3 decades, in our regional languages, Victor Hugo's books are translated even in Malayalam also. Indians are always eager to read foreign literature, hence they will receive the translated tales with the open arms. There is no doubt in this case. Every best writer's literature will be definitely read in every Indian language that is possible for that. It is an impressive modus of operandi for effective cultural exchange. Because Paris and French has their own cultural background. For example, we can see so many buildings are here. You are keeping your cultural background you are keeping. Definitely the people of the India will definitely accept your literature also in this manner. This sort of interaction can make publishing and copyright arrangements cost effective and profitable. Definitely it should be very grateful to the world publishing industry also. Of course, we are absolutely aware these modalities can be implemented through some sort of national, some institutional supports. In India, there are so many such institutions are there. Some private institutions, public institutions, definitely they all can support in this case. Its implementation needs statutory framework. It needs establishments with support units in all Indian states, that means provinces. It should be capable of integrating responsibilities in exciting units, both public and private as it is. Especially private has a very good space there now. The system definitely needs high-level officials with the utmost commitment. Celebrities, actors, public institutions like NBT, state governments, private publishers, academic institutions, etc. can be counted as stakeholders in this respect. Pool of experts in translation and production may be drafted for capacity build-up. Copyright, as it is copyright is also an international issue now. Copyright issues in connection with knowledge transfer and funding may be sorted out by the statutory bodies of both governments. Actually, I am presenting these 6 points in front of you You can also discuss about that, and you can also suggest other papers. I am, in my point of view, I am presenting all these subjects to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think, sir, you made very pertinent points, and I'm sure this will be taken up as the discussion goes on. I would have one quick question for Mr. Ramesh Chandra Vohra, because you are here especially as an Indian author who has been based in France for almost 5 decades, and your inputs would be important. How what difficulties you find in publishing your Indian themed books in French? Whether you have any connections with the Indian authors, or do you think there should be some kind of a platform which can help authors like you here?
Oui, bonjour. Je m'appelle Ramesh Chandra Vohra. Je suis membre de IPA, Indian Professional Association, en France, et président de IFSI, Interfaith Shahidi Association, qui s'occupe des soldats de Première Guerre mondiale morts en France. Dans la Première Guerre mondiale, il y en avait 74 000 qui ne sont pas connus, qui personne ne parle de ces gens-là. Et à la force de faire des choses pour eux, et dans les années 1990, j'ai commencé à aller dans le nord de la France, où je l'ai vu plein de cimetières où il y avait des soldats indiens, et spécialement le monument de Neuf-Chapelle, qui est à Richebourg. Je suis ni un écrivain, j'étais ni l'auteur, mais à la force des choses et la volonté, j'ai commencé à écrire les vraies histoires des soldats indiens, les paysans qu'ils ont me raconté, qui ses grands-parents, qu'ils étaient des amis avec des hindous en turban. Alors, ça m'a donné envie de commencer à écrire. Et voilà, et maintenant j'ai écrit le premier livre qui est L'ombre des histoires. C'est un livre qui est sur l'exposition, que je l'ai préparé. Je l'ai récupéré les photos des journaux de 1914-18. Je l'ai fait transformer en peinture. Et je l'ai fait une exposition qu'on a inaugurée l'année dernière, mois de novembre. Et ensuite, j'ai écrit un livre sur les tableaux. Il y a une spécification de ces tableaux et je l'ai fait ça. Alors, c'était le problème, vraiment des problèmes pour la traduction parce que c'est maintenant en anglais et l'autre version c'est en français. C'était vraiment un problème de traduction et la édition. Parce qu'il faut la correction, il faut faire des trucs. Et en Inde, je ne pouvais pas faire parce qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de gens qui pouvaient les traduire en français et qui pouvaient faire la correction. Et en anglais, ici, personne ne pouvait le faire non plus. Alors maintenant, aujourd'hui, on est là. Et je souhaite qu'il y ait une plateforme qui est prête. Il faut faire une plateforme ici et en Inde aussi, où il y a les deux langues qui peuvent l'écrire, qui peuvent faire addition de ça. Voilà, c'était mon premier. Et il y a le 12e livre qui va sortir bientôt. Mais je suis en train de chercher une publication qui peut le publier. C'est une occasion de parler de ça. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Thank you for the interpretation.
So very, very briefly, the gist of what the gentleman has said. He's been living in France for 50 years, and the first book he published was The Shadow of History, L'ombre de l'histoire, un livre sur la Première Guerre mondiale. Et à l'époque, il avait préparé une exposition sur le sujet avec les tableaux qu'il avait peints. Sorry. So I've been living in France for 50 years, and the first book I wrote was the Shadow of History, a book on the First World War, and it went along a number of paintings which I had prepared on the subject. And at the time, it was really difficult to find people to do the translation and the editing. So what I noticed is that in the number of years since I've been living in France, there are more linguistic possibilities now. And I just seize this opportunity to say that I've another book that is nearly finished writing, and I'm in search of a publisher. So I use this opportunity to mention this new upcoming book.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Shri Yuvraj Malik, the Director of National Book Trust, he has been working tirelessly for this Guest of Honor project. And I think, I don't know, so many conversations and email exchange with SNE President have been happening for so many months. I would like him to share his experience of putting up this show here and how he visualizes how a kind of a roadmap ahead, and so that this show, there is some kind of a institutional mechanism for a follow-up for further dialogue.
Thank you so much, Vikramji. First of all, I would like to put on record and compliment Mr. Vincent Montagno for putting in, showing the kind of resilience and perseverance to organize this event, and it's been a big success. The kind of response in our pavilion and outside I've seen is tremendous. So all hats off to your efforts, and we have been communicating for long to take this event further and make it a very successful one. It's an honor and a privilege surely for us that we are guest of honor. It has two significances, because we are not only a country, but we are also one of the biggest ecosystem for the publishing industry. If we talk about NBT, we produce almost 70 to 80 million books ourselves every year. So that's a huge volume. The idea is how to take this forward. So keeping in lead, you'll be glad to know that on the opening day of the event, we had 10 books to be translated and released on the first day, which were in other languages, but we have brought them into French. So the beginning of our publishing phase has already started. Second part is how to make it institutional. That's a very important point, because one-off event does not mean that it will become an institutional mechanism. I personally feel, as my colleague has mentioned, that we have to have a sustained dialogue at different levels, from author to author, publisher to publisher, government to government, publishing bodies to publishing bodies, event to event, festival to festival. This is one of the biggest festivals ever happening in the Europe, Paris Book Festival. So is the event which we have in New Delhi World Book Fair, which is the biggest event in entire Asia and Africa, where almost 1.5 million people move in for the as a visitor. So to that scale, there's enough opportunity for the French publishers to come and put up, and we have to institutionalize. Like we have come as guest of honor. Of course, country can't be guest of honor every year, but at least there can be a reciprocal arrangement for French authorities, either led by Mr. Vincent under SNE, a collaboration of 5-10 eminent publishers, coming up, putting up a show together, and exhibit their content. Similarly, I get my CEOs from the industry, make them meet, and I want to put also this on record, which is worth mentioning, that during that we organize an event that is known as CEOs Speak. That means top CEOs of the publishing industry, they get together, they have a breakfast, lunch, dinner meeting, and they stay together and then discuss the possibilities of future collaboration and rights exchange. So the content which the French side feel could be taken into Indian languages will be received well, will be a great welcome, and similarly the content which they feel from the Indian side would be accepted well in the community. I met some of the Tamil publishers, because there's a strong Tamil connect with French. There's a place Pondicherry, where elections are happening in France, but voting is also happening in Pondicherry. So that is the kind of ties which we have. So 5,000 people plus are electoral voters there in the territory. So we have a strong regions to connect, we have strong regions to have ties, and we have a strong audience as well. And as our chairman in one of the previous sessions has meant, was a very beautiful thing. I want to quote it again here. That education is regional, it is for people, but knowledge is universal. And books are the source of universal knowledge. So there's a greater need to put it for universalization of the content. So I feel there's a lot of opportunity for not only the publishers, but the entire ecosystem. And I am very, very hopeful what we have started today with this first app is going to be a great beginning and a great opportunity for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Vincent Motani, the Senate President, he is here with us, and some of the ideas that have been shared here for a continued dialogue between publishers and between authors, the times to take. So how do you respond to this, and how do you think it can happen, and how some kind of a platform can be created?
Bon, merci pour votre accueil à cette table ronde et puis merci Alain d'avoir accepté de venir à Paris dans ce contexte historique que l'ouvrage nous a rappelé. Et je voudrais souligner à quel point il a été un vecteur de cette relation vraiment presque mensuelle dans laquelle nous nous sommes appelés dans des circonstances sanitaires compliquées, mais on y croyait et donc le fait qu'on soit ici aujourd'hui est un très bel événement.
Thank you to welcome me on this roundtable. I want to thank India to have accepted to be the guest country for this year at a particular time in our common history that you mentioned before. And I want to thank my neighbor for our monthly, even more frequent talks that we've had for a number of years. But the reason why we made it happen was because we both strongly believed in it.
Alors je crois qu'effectivement un événement comme celui-là, il doit se compléter par cette invitation qui va avoir lieu l'an prochain à New Delhi. Et je crois qu'il ne faut jamais oublier qu'entre les institutions que nous représentons, que ce soit le syndicat de l'édition ou l'État français, et puis de l'autre côté le National Book Trust, ce sont des supports, des plateformes, que vous l'avez dit, qui ne doivent pas nous empêcher de comprendre que c'est cette relation possible entre l'auteur, l'éditeur et son lecteur qui vont faire la réussite des liens institutionnels.
Indeed, this is a significant event, and it's only fair that there will be a reciprocal invitation to France in New Delhi next year. We must never lose sight of the fact that the institutions we represent, the publishing syndicate, the French state, and the NBT on the other side, are platforms, as you say, but they should not prevent us from understanding that what makes something work is the relationship that will install itself between the writer, the publisher, and the reader.
Ce que je veux dire, c'est que même s'il y a des grandes maisons d'édition comme Actes Sud, Buchet-Chastel, Philippe Ray, Liana Lévy, Globe Édition ou Les Belles Lettres ou même Héloïse d'Ormesson, ce sont autant de maisons qui se sont saisies d'une relation particulière avec l'Inde. Il faut toujours réfléchir que même si, en tant que groupe d'édition, nous voulons cette relation, ça ne remplacera pas l'importance qu'un éditeur va accorder à un livre nouveau et donc la traduction. Et là où je veux en venir, c'est que autant l'effort économique que va faire les maisons d'édition ne peut pas être fait sans l'institutionnalisation de la traduction. La traduction est l'élément vital que le Centre national du livre fait régulièrement et finance pour que des éditeurs puissent présenter au public des auteurs inconnus du public et pour en faire des best-sellers.
There are many publishing houses in France, Actes Sud, Globe, Belles Lettres d'Héloïse d'Ormesson, who have had long connections and special relationships with India for a while. But the fact that a group wants to have a relationship with a publishing group in India must not hide the fact that it all starts by the interest of a publisher for a book in a foreign language, and therefore for the need for translation. So the institutionalization of translation is extremely important, and we finance this effort at the French Syndicate of Publishers because it's the only way that an audience can meet an unknown, so far unknown author and sometimes turn it into a bestseller.
Alors juste pour terminer cette première introduction, je pense que si vous voulez, c'est très important de se dire, et vous avez parfaitement de raison, c'est pas seulement l'anglais, c'est pas seulement l'anglais et le français, c'est pas seulement l'hindi, c'est toutes les langues. Et ce que nous voulons, c'est que vous puissiez nous apporter et travailler sur des traductions d'auteurs indiens dans d'autres langues, pour que nous puissions découvrir la richesse incroyable de toutes les régions indiennes. Et ce travail-là, il dépend beaucoup de ce que vous allez pouvoir faire pour faire découvrir par des traductions. On ne peut pas le faire de façon théorique. Il faut qu'on bénéficie de ces traductions. Et ça, c'est un vrai investissement que le National Book Trust ou des institutions privées indiennes doivent financer.
That's what's very important, and you were right in saying so, is that it's important to introduce to French readers not just Indian books written in English or Hindi, but written in all the diversity of Indian languages. But to do that, we need national institutions like the NBT or private institutions to make an investment. This is what you can do to do this translation effort, so the books can then be translated from English into French and represent the diversity of languages and regions in India.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for your intervention. As Mr. Montania has been suggesting, and other panelists also have been suggesting about the institutionalizing, let's size it up, and I would ask Director if there can be a possibility of say sharing the annual rights catalogs of books from India through an online forum, through an online system, which can be sort of also be responded back by the French side. So if we can start this kind of a sharing of the rights catalog and information about the books which are being published, that can be a way forward, perhaps.
Absolutely right, Vikramji. There's a great opportunity and scope for institutionalizing it. I totally agree with my colleague. We can definitely document books which are good and available for right exchange with the French counterpart, and keep exchanging that information on regular basis so that the publishers, as and when they want, and we can definitely speak to all the publishers. But as you know, that during Delhi World Book Fair, the biggest opportunity when we have all the publishers under one roof, all the CEOs are under one roof, and the kind of response that content is getting, that is visible to everybody. So that is the ideal forum in which we can definitely get people together, document the content, document the options available, exchange with our colleague here. And similarly, we expect, like right now, those who are keen to take that the content should go into Indian languages or in Indian format, so that also can be documented and exchanged during these guest of honor presentations or other meets. And it will be great if we have authors to author communication. At least a forum can be set up where 5-7 people meet, talk, communicate. Maybe initially it's an informal method, but over a period of time, that's how it becomes formal also. So that's another opportunity, and also we can connect with all the publishers which are there as a nodal agency. NBT can definitely facilitate, and we can explore the mutual opportunities.
Thank you. I come back to Mr. Vincent Montania. See, we are a national body. We work. We are a public institution, and we have our own mandate to fulfill. But as in France, as in India, ours is a democratic country. It's an open country. So there are publishers who are in private sector, and it is they have their own they have their own objectives, their own business prototypes to deal with. So what challenges do you foresee if some kind of a forum is tried to be made, whether the major private publishers would be interested, and how can it be made interesting for them?
Alors, vous avez raison de souligner que la différence importante, c'est qu'en dehors de peut-être de la réunion des musées nationaux et de quelques maisons instituées au niveau de l'État, la large majorité des maisons d'édition est privée. Et donc, dans ce raisonnement, c'est le choix de chaque maison d'édition d'avoir envie ou pas de participer à un forum, de s'informer dans toutes les langues et pas uniquement vis-à-vis de l'Inde. Donc c'est le but de ces événements, c'est de faire découvrir et de donner un appétit à ce monde qui pour nous est un monde artisanal. Donc il reste le choix libre de chaque maison d'édition. Et je pense que c'est quelque chose qui marche bien, puisque au total nous faisons 5 milliards de chiffre d'affaires, donc c'est pas rien. Mais c'est simplement, il faut avoir en tête que c'est dans cette relation, nous sommes administrateurs du Centre national du livre, et c'est dans ce contexte du Conseil que nous discutons et dialoguons sur comment on va orienter les aides, par exemple, à la traduction dans telle ou telle langue et tel ou tel secteur. Ça, c'est pour exporter. Et donc, je pense que on peut institutionnaliser, mais on ne peut pas institutionnaliser trop, parce que celui qui va choisir d'acheter ou pas un livre, ça restera toujours le lecteur.
You're right, the big difference with you and us, the SNEs, is that apart from the reunion of national museums, for instance, most publishing houses in this country are private. So whatever book is published comes from the individual choice of one publisher to inform readers about any other country, not just India. The point of such events as the book festival is to whet the appetite of publishers and public alike, but at the end of the day, it's always the free choice of the publishing house. And it works quite well, because annually this business has a turnover of 5 billion euros. But in this context, institutionalized context, we act as advisory to the National Book Center on how to guide financial incentives and support, and how best to use support for translation, for example. But I don't think it would be useful or even desirable to institutionalize too much what is an individual choice.
Yeah, thank you. One question for Mr. Nand Kumarji, and then maybe director would like to respond, and maybe there can be a summing up by the chairperson. So, Mr. Nand Kumarji, since you have raised so many ideas that you have floated, but as many of these ideas would require some kind of support system. So, do you think that if, to begin with, if we can have some publishing houses from India who already have connections in France and vice versa, if that kind of a database can be created, and then it will be better, it will be easier to move forward?
As Mr. Vikramji, definitely. There are so many private institutions in India and France also. In Indian publishers are also, if any type of the support from the public sector giving to them, then definitely the publishers will be ready. In my experience, is the lag. Nowadays, in my information that the France is also giving some support to some French books to translation to India. Now, as it is, you are doing like that, isn't it? Isn't France is doing some support for their books to publishing to in Indian languages? Are you giving now? The Tagore Publication Assistance Program is going on here.
Je pense qu'il faut peut-être analyser un petit peu au-delà sur la notoriété de ces auteurs. Vous voyez, il y a une chose qui est très importante, ce que nous sommes en train de vivre aujourd'hui, et particulièrement en France, c'est l'accélération du nombre de titres éditoriaux portés à l'écran, c'est-à-dire le déploiement d'une production audiovisuelle du cinéma. Il y a une énorme accélération à partir des réalités éditoriales. Donc ça, c'est un point clé qu'il faut aussi analyser. C'est-à-dire que ce n'est pas en théorie un texte que l'on va prendre d'un auteur inconnu. Je pense qu'il faut commencer par des best-sellers. Il y a une raison, vous avez dit qu'on accédait tous à l'universel par que le livre et qu'il y avait une dimension qui allait au-delà de chaque culture, c'est vrai, et donc il faut partir déjà dans un raisonnement de livres qui ont été portés à l'écran ou de livres qui ont un poids intellectuel suffisant pour justifier qu'on mette en œuvre une traduction.
I think we need to think about known authors in France, because there's one phenomenon that has really gathered speed in the last years, and that's the number of titles that have been turned into audiovisual production, movies, and that's a key point. In theory, it's just not a question of choosing any text, but I think we should start with you translating bestsellers, because as you said, education is regional, knowledge is universal, and you find knowledge in books, but there's a reason that we start with books which have either been on-screened or have exceptional intellectual content.
Thank you, thank you. So maybe one last remark from...
If I could add something. En français. Nous avons mis au point une structure qui s'appelle la SELF, qui est exactement c'est la société civile des éditeurs de langue française. Et nous formons les éditeurs à un pitch qui est une présentation auprès des producteurs audiovisuels des contenus de leurs titres. Et c'est ça qui a accéléré cette relation entre les éditeurs et les producteurs. Donc il y a tout un travail de présentation, de préparation des contenus éditoriaux. Et cette façon de résumer une histoire, une temporalité,